Hi there, Serial Trader here. Let's have a look at weed. And okay, wow. So since the last video, we went from looking real good and healthy here. Two trading sessions later, now we're in the depths of despair again. All right. So what happened here? Well, technically, everything appeared to be set up quite nicely for continuation of the upside. We had these two channels, this larger degree channel and this smaller degree channel. And we were breaking out nicely out of both of them. Really looked like a third wave in progress. Right? I was expecting that, and then I was expecting, when that was done, to have some sort of requisite mild, relatively mild pullback and hold above this level to make it a, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then have a fifth. Have a typical Elliott trending move off a bottom. Well, that's not what happened. We just had the rug pulled out from under us. And this gave me flashbacks to trading cryptocurrencies where you're just working a nice setup and everything looks good. And then boom, it just evaporates almost instantaneously, it seems. Now, just to give you the context of that, so from the low here, we had 14 trading sessions, okay, 14 actual trading days to make our high here from the low. And then that was almost all given back in two trading sessions, so today and yesterday. So that can be frustrating. Now, as far as I can tell, the only quote-unquote bad news that came out, and I don't even view it as bad news when you read between the lines. So the Ontario provincial government announced that they are actually going to allow private retail, like private retailers, to sell marijuana products. Which is actually really positive because the previous Liberal government was only going to have about 40 government-run stores, which would have been woefully inadequate for the size that the province of Ontario is. It would also probably have been poorly run because anything government-related typically isn't very good, in my view. So that was all gotten rid of, and okay, they're going to embrace private retail businesses, and that'll probably imply at least 400 or so separate retail outlets or stores, which is very good actually. But the only thing was, this won't really go ahead until April, even though recreational marijuana will be legal, I believe, as of October 17th, and people in Ontario will still be able to buy recreational marijuana online, through online retailing as of that date. So that's, to me, it seems fine, and the fact that it was still a huge turnaround from what the previous policy would have been, I just don't understand how that's a bearish headline. But that's what's being blamed anyways on this sudden drop, and this wasn't unique to weed. All the marijuana stocks essentially had similar big moves down, seemingly on this. But I digress. Now, I had a stop loss at just below 32.85. It got triggered, which I wasn't pleased to see, but hey, you got to take your stop. That was a significant support area after this consolidation we had, so it meant something when I got taken out. Now, that being said, towards the end of the day, things started to stabilize, and it stopped going down. So I said to myself, well, it's already dropped a lot from the peak we were just at. I can now buy back in lower than what I got stopped out at. So I actually increased the number of shares I had prior to being stopped out without having to use any more capital, which if you really believe in the stock, which I do, that's definitely a good thing to do. And also earnings are coming out. Earnings came out this evening, and that'll obviously be reflected in the stock and the trading tomorrow. And who knows how that's going to go. I mean, the reaction to earnings is unpredictable, really. In my opinion, it was a good earnings report. They did report a loss, but that's to be expected as they're spending a lot of money ramping up for an entire new market that opens on October 17th. So they have to build up their inventory, get ready to ship all the product out. They have to spend like mad getting all the logistics ready. And if you actually dig deeper into the report, So the business they are currently making revenue in, the medicinal marijuana business, that's growing well, and the margins are good there, and there's lots of new markets opening up and relationships, and Germany and Colombia, and just all kinds of good things going on fundamentally. But they did report a loss, and the loss was supposedly bigger than what analysts had expected. Although those estimates you just pull out of your ass essentially, especially on a very difficult to analyze new industry like this. But that being said, there could be a negative reaction tomorrow for all we know, and we could go lower short term. Now, if that does take place, we could fill this gap here, and that would be at 30.55. We can go to previous resistance and maybe find an active support, which would be 31.46, which isn't far away at all. And we could go down to the previous fourth wave, 1 lesser degree, at 27. And that was also this equality relationship between A and B here. And this would have to be a different pattern. This would no longer just be a simple zigzag if that were the case, as we broke out of this. So we do have one zigzag down, and this could possibly be ABC for W, and then we have an X wave up, and then we'd have an ABC for Y. And you have a WXY double zigzag. That's possible, although I prefer, and I'll just show you what I mean by that. WX. Sorry, put the W down here. ABC completes the first zigzag. We have an X wave up, and then something like that. Just totally taking a stab at this, but maybe something like this, double zigzag, certainly possible. And this is not what I want to see, but just be aware that this is potentially in play. But still, once it's resolved, if it does have to go a little lower, still implying further upside once complete. And so the chart overall, any short-term weakness here aside, still bullish. This still looks very corrective, okay? All this action looks corrective. Meaning once complete, it'll lead to a full retracement of the correction, which implies new highs. And fundamentally, how could you not be bullish about this? So I'll say another thing too about Canada. So it's very difficult to be a successful business in Canada because there's a lot of red tape and regulation. It's really not a business-friendly environment. Maybe it was at one time, but that has changed. And now the government really tends to pick winners. And in this case, all the big licensed producers, they're going to be the winners of the recreational marijuana space. That's all there is to it. The barriers to entry are quite high, and they're already established, and that's just the way it's going to be. I'll make a comparison to the telecommunications industry in Canada, and you really just have, I believe, 3 major companies, TELUS, Bell, and Rogers. And they don't really compete with one another. I mean, officially they do, but they all basically have the same plans for similar prices, and nobody really, looks to disrupt the market because they all just have a stranglehold on it. And the government prevents, say, Sprint or T-Mobile or AT&T, something like that from the U.S. from coming in and competing, which would, obviously increase the service levels and lower the price. That's what competition does. But the government doesn't allow it. It's very protectionist. So you just have an oligopoly, and the banks are the same way in Canada. You just have, I believe 5 or so major banks, and they're just allowed to be the winners with no real competition. And this is going to be the same situation with the licensed marijuana producers. And Canopy Growth, right now, they're looking like the number one. If you just go through all of what they're doing and their balance sheet and the relationships they have and the brands they're establishing, they're clearly number one. And they have the best looking chart too, which is the most important for me. So the tailwinds are there. All this short-term volatility aside, you almost have to look past it. And I am viewing this a little differently than a lot of trades. This really is an investment in a new market, a new growing exciting market where you're, you know, almost guaranteed success because competition is quite restricted in Canada. So those are kind of my 2 cents on weed, Canopy Growth Corporation. I would view any of this weakness as a buying opportunity. It really is unfortunate that I established, you know, a little too large of a position too early in this pullback, but I really do believe in this industry, and I really do believe in this particular company. And I do still like the chart overall, maybe not short term here, but overall I do like it. So that being said, do what you will with that, but sometimes you just got to hold your nose and buy more. All right, that's probably good for now. Serial Trader, signing off.